it's not my problem. When I feel heavy metal, and I'm pissed and I'm when I lie and I'm missing all of the time, but I'm never sure why I need you. Please don't be shy.
All right, we got a great podcast today. Beautiful Wednesday. We're getting through hump day here, and it's going to be a great one. As always, myself, Coach Schumann here, and to my left today, I have Coach D, as always, on the podcast. So we're excited to talk to our fantastic guest today, Coach Martinovich from Rochester University. We're really excited to talk to him. He has really had a fantastic career. As he told us on the pre-part of the show, 31 years that he's been coaching. But most recently, in the 90s, he was at Swarthmore as an office coordinator, University of Albany, Hamilton, Bucknell. He's been at he played at Hobart, and but really most recently at MIT before he came to Rochester was really where he took a place that had not had a ton of success and really took it to a whole different level. He had, I think, 17 academic All-Americans, tremendous winning percentage there, turned the program around. I think they were 10-1 at one point, and he was there for 9 years. Tremendous amount of top performers, and he's now in the process of really turning around Rochester. I would say also a tremendously high academic school, which I think Coach brings a lot of familiarity with that to the process, having been at MIT, because there's probably no more difficult place from an academic standpoint to bring players in. So, continuing that at the University of Rochester is a fantastic opportunity, which he's continued to do and really build that program into a powerhouse now. In all the years that he's been there, I think he's had 43 all-conference performers in the Liberty League, in and out every single year, a winning record. And so without further ado, Coach Martinovich, thanks for coming on, Coach.
Appreciate you having me.
Coach, the first thing I have a question on is you've taken what I would call the hard road. So obviously, being a high academic, you went to high academic school yourself, so you understand what that is like. But some of the places that you've coached at are some of like literally top 5, top 10 universities in the whole entire country. And traditionally, before you've gotten there, and unless they've had special coaches like yourself, those places have struggled. Talk about the appeal of coming to the University of Rochester, and then we'll go backtrack and really let you dive into your background. But I really wanted to touch on that before we go deep into your background.
The appeal of the University of Rochester, it's multifaceted. Honestly, we're a top 40 academic institution. We play in one of the toughest conferences in all Division III. We're in the 3rd largest city in New York State. So there's a lot to do here. Our roster reflects our campus community. This is a national campus. We draw students from all over the country and all over the world. And we have 25 different states represented on our roster. The airport's 5 minutes from campus, so our guys from outside the Northeast can get home easily. But the people make the place, and this is such a diverse university in terms of personality alone that it makes it kind of one of one. Because we have a great school of engineering, and the engineering students are different from the business students, and the business students are different from the pre-med kids, and the pre-med kids are different from the pre-law kids. And then we got the Eastman School of Music, which is a different type of student altogether, but it's one community. And it really makes it a special place, and it's allowed us to attract some of the best and brightest, and more importantly, the talented student athletes to help us turn this thing around. I walked into my first team meeting, going on now 7 years ago. It was in February, and there was 38 kids sitting in the room. Knew right then that it was going to be basically rebuild it from the ground up scenario, similar to MIT. And we've had some great recruiting classes we brought in over the last few years. Obviously had to power through COVID like everybody else, and now we expect to compete for Liberty League championships and hopefully make noise at the national level here. Now that I think we can compete with anybody on our schedule.
And it's interesting too, because Rochester, the city, has gone through lots of highs and lows, but that the school is a fantastic institution of learning. I mean, it's an unbelievable academic school, and they've always wanted to really kind of continue to grow the sports area there. So it's a place that's yearning for that kind of stuff. Let's dive a little bit. Let's go back in the past. How did you went to college, played football? Talk about that. Talk about what got you into coaching, and kind of what your road has been leading up to coming into the University of Rochester.
Sure. Well, I grew up playing both football and hockey, and originally went to college to do both. Did both my freshman year. Where I grew up in Plattsburgh, New York, most people were playing hockey more so than football. But my dad was a high school football coach. In college, I thought I wanted to go to law school after college, because my mother always said I argued very well. Dad was a high school football coach, so I guess he won in the end, because I finished up my senior season and realized I definitely wasn't good enough to keep playing and wanted to stay with it. So went into my head coach at the time, and he proceeded to call everybody he knew in the business and found me my first opportunity at Bucknell. I was a volunteer assistant there. The head coach there at the time helped me find a place to live and a bartending job to make ends meet. And then got fired right after that season. So I got to experience that right out of the gate. Kind of bounced around to some different schools. Been at some high academics, obviously, even early in my career at Hamilton. And but was at UAlbany with Coach Ford, who had a tremendous coaching tree, and really learned a lot from him when I was there as a graduate assistant. And I got my first full-time coordinator experience at Swarthmore, which at the time was the #1 liberal arts school in the country. 3 years into that, they dropped the program. So we bounced around quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then being a coordinator on both sides of the ball, I think prepared me pretty well to become a head coach. After being the defensive coordinator at RPI with Joe King, we had a lot of success there. Got my first head coaching opportunity at MIT. Didn't quite know what I was walking into there. Knew it was very competitive academically in terms of admissions, but didn't know what the state of the program was. And, we were able to turn that into a championship program. Had a fair amount of success there. Had some great kids, phenomenal football players, but even better people who are doing great things in the world right now. But after my last season there, I got a phone call from the AD here at University of Rochester, asked me if he drove out to Boston, would I have breakfast with him? And he kind of laid out what they were trying to do here to turn around the program in terms of facilities and whatnot, and ultimately made me and my family an offer we couldn't refuse. So here I am.
It's unbelievable. You're also slightly a glutton for punishment. which I respect, by the way. I respect that, being someone who's a glutton for punishment myself. So, no, I tell you, I love the challenges that you've taken on because people outside of maybe the Northeast don't realize, maybe not realize. I mean, I guess the only way I can explain it to people outside of the Northeast would be like if you're on the West Coast, you have California, CIT, California Institute of Technology, and how hard it is to get into that school. I don't think they have football though. So being at MIT, that's what that is like, and the University of Rochester, very very similar from an academic standpoint. When SATs were obviously, I mean, I guess now some of the places don't require SATs, but I remember is like you need to have almost a perfect score to go to these kind of schools if you weren't an athlete, and even if you are an athlete, you still have to have an unbelievably high score to be able to get in there. So those are not easy places to build up because it requires, obviously, first and foremost, someone who can go into the school and do the job academically, which limits your pool to a certain extent right there. And then the second point is, the Division III level. So it's one thing if you're the Ivy League or you're Princeton, Princeton or Harvard. Everybody knows those schools, right? But these are super high academic schools on the level with those schools playing at the Division III level. So the way kids are today, it's always a challenge to get them to take a look at Division III schools, much less build a program up. So talk about how you kind of handled some of those challenges, because I think, and me and Derek talk about this a lot, but I think that's become even more of a challenge with kids just because of social media, and they see all the glory that goes into Division I and the kind of Division I or bust mentality type of thing. Even high academic kids, Ivy League or bust mentality type of thing. Talk about those challenges and how you've been able to overcome that.
I learned a lot at MIT. You talk about challenging. I remember one year our top quarterback recruit had a perfect SAT score and they denied him. Yeah.
Wow.
Perfect 800 on the math, denied. So that was a dose of reality. What that drives us to do is, you have to cast a very big net. You can't, if you want to bring in 2 quarterbacks, you can't just recruit 10. You have to have a very big roster of them and make sure all of them can fit what you're trying to do as a program. And but it's about selling what you have. And I've learned a lot of things over the years being at schools like this in terms of where are the pockets of the country where they have the kids that, a large section of kids that definitely want our type of education. What schools throughout the country have the high academic kids? It's a little easier. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's a little easier now going into year 7 than it was year 1 here, just because we've developed a reputation with a lot of high school coaches throughout the country. And you do have to recruit nationally at schools like this. And the same thing at MIT. The first couple of years recruiting at MIT, I had to explain that, yes, we had football. Because they'd be like, MIT has football. The head coach I took over for started the program as a club sport and really kept kind of running it like a club program, just waiting for kids to show up after admissions decisions. So, again, here we have 6 full-time assistants, and the 7 of us recruit the entire country, whether it's through email and social media and phone calls, and then boots on the ground in our higher volume areas and states throughout the country. So a lot of time and effort, casting a big net, and then getting kids to understand the return on investment here. Oh, yeah. And the fact that, they're the fortunate few that can still play college football and study what they want to study at a place like this. So, we have engineers, we have pre-med kids, We have kids preparing to go to law school. We have finance majors. So the way we set up our schedule day to day allows them to pursue all those things, especially the lab-based majors, and still be college football players, which, maybe you can't say at some places, especially at the higher levels.
With Rochester having like alumni that go all over the country, are you able to tap into that alumni? Does that help you at all in the process with identifying? It
definitely helps.
It does.
It definitely helps. I think, especially if there's some kind of connection with their alum, then those recruits have a better understanding of what the university is all about and what it can do for you professionally after graduation. That helps quite a bit. There's a lot more alums on board now than when I first got here.
I would imagine that as you're building it, they start to be like, oh, wow, we have football. Oh, wow, that's great. Oh, wow, how can I help? It takes time, though, to get that going. I think also the advantage you have, one of the advantages you do have is a lot of guys at full-time staff, right?
That's really amazing.
At division, exactly. Like a lot of and Derek could attest to because he played in the NJAC. Like a lot of the NJAC schools would do like part-time guys, right? So, besides maybe a couple full-time guys, and that allows you, I guess, because you need to be able to blanket the whole country. That helps tremendously.
Exactly, and that's what I explained to the athletic director as we were talking about the position. Is you look at our peer institutions. The Carnegie Mellons, the Case Westerns, the Johns Hopkins, University of Chicago, some of the NESCAC schools, as well as the Ivy and Patriot Leagues. We need to have similar staffing to be able to recruit nationally like our peer institutions do. And fortunately, they understand that here. Not all of our sports are in the Liberty League. A lot of them are in the UAA, which consists of those schools, the Carnegies and University of Chicago's and so on. So the administration understands that, and they made the commitment when we got here to help us rebuild it, and we've had the patience to allow us to do so. And we still got a lot of work to do, but it's a lot better than it was 7 years ago.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, that's that.
No, go ahead, Derek. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, look, I mean, that's actually, unbelievable. We talked to a bunch of, Division III guys that come on here, and to have 6'5" assistants, like that's really something special. Not just for, obviously for the recruiting base and net that you can cast out there, but just also for those guys on your team specifically to know that, those guys are in the office, right? And because of how much they have to handle academically, off the field, to know that those guys are there, like, I just think that's so, like, it just takes your program to another level. It makes that appeal to go there even different, right? Because, in comparison to other Division III programs where, for the longest time, it was the head coach and maybe a coordinator and then maybe a part-time guy, or, then it, okay, a head coach, coordinators, maybe a staff of 4, right? But, 6, that really takes you to a different level in comparison to the schools within your conference or division itself. Does anybody have that many?
I think some are in the ballpark. But when I got to MIT, I was the only full-time coach. I had a staff.
Right. And that's literally, and that's the norm. Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. So, yeah, but that was part of the selling point coming here is we need to be able to support these kids off the field more so than even on the field.
Absolutely.
We every freshman class, we divvy up amongst the staff to become academic coaches. So we meet individually with each kid once a week. He has his own academic coach who isn't his position coach. We make sure that he's developing a relationship with somebody else on staff, and they sit down for a half hour a week to go over how they're doing in each individual class, whether they need help in each individual class, how their time management is going. Are they homesick?
God, that's
how are they
awesome.
sleeping? How are they eating? It's a weekly check-in. And I started doing this at MIT by myself, but now it's a little easier having the staffing to do it to support these kids. But they need that kind of support, with everything going on in the world, and they need that support off the field. And we eliminated study hall. I think that's an absolute waste of time, throwing, a freshman into a room together 3 hours a week and expecting them to do anything. I think the individual one-on-one is what makes them successful. And our team's GPA has been over a 3.0 every semester since we've been here. So the guys are crushing it in the classroom.
Kudos to you on that. Back in 1992, when I entered college, and I was sitting there in study hall, and I was a very good student. I was sitting there in study hall, and I was just like, "Why am I sitting here in study hall?" And none of the guys are doing anything academically. One guy trying to mess with the next guy, and eventually, I was able to convince my coach that I did not need to be in study hall, but I think that you're right. The one-on-one is really how you can get the most out of them, especially the guys that might identifying the guys that do maybe need some extra help and getting those guys the help that they need is really, really important, because obviously the school's a difficult school, and keeping them on track is an important thing. But
we're talking
waste of time.
We're able to get the guys the tutors they need, or
Correct.
create group study tables. But I figured it out when I was assistant. Actually, when I was the defensive coordinator at RPI, I was in charge of study hall and the academic success program that we had there. And I remember it came to me. I'm sitting there in study hall with the kids one night, and I'm going around to each individual trying to figure out what each of them need. I'm like, it'd be better time spent if I was actually meeting with these kids individually than sitting in a room with them and telling them to, shut up and get their work done.
Exactly.
This was before cell phones, so I wasn't telling them to get off their phones yet.
No, you're a
little bit there.
You're a warden. You know what I mean? You're a warden is what you are. And,
you're a baby. You're a babysitter.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then and they look at it that way. That's like, because they've been in that that the system of schools where when you're in that kind of group setting, and it's almost like, you're at after school detention almost, and you got to do the work you need to do. Obviously it's there to help them improve, but there are kids that, even if they're good students, especially if they're sometimes the guys that are really good students, sometimes they're like, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? So you don't need them being a problem because they already have their stuff done, and they're talking to somebody who might need help, right? I think that one-on-one approach and the tutors is always a better way in figuring out what they need to do, from that standpoint. So really interesting take, because I bet you a lot of coaches around the country still probably don't think the way that you do. So I think that's a really, really good thing you're doing there.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Talk about what like a year-round program looks like at Rochester. So what does the year-round development of the athletes look like, and how is that kind of schedule run for them?
Once the fall season's over, during the winter months, our guys lift 4 times a week and run 2 mornings a week. We're fortunate here with UR Medicine, which is huge in upstate New York. The medical center is right on campus here, but UR Medicine has a division called Fitness Science, where they have certified strength coaches, a certified sports dietitian, and a sports psychologist, and they work with all of our athletes as consultants. So they are able to run our program through the winter months. And once we get to spring ball, I try to push it as late into the spring semester as possible, just to hope for good weather. So we can get out on the turf without as much snow as we get sometimes. So then we practice 3 mornings a week for 5 weeks, and then we lift 3 times a week there. And then now that they're into the summer months, they go back to 4 lifts a week and 3 running sessions a week. I don't mandate that our guys stay here on campus for the summer, just because of all the internships and job opportunities they have all over the country and sometimes all over the world.
I can't imagine.
I'm not going to tell a kid that he can't take a job on Wall Street because he has to stay here to lift, especially if he's going to be making 6 figures pretty quickly. So fortunately, with the UR Fitness Science, they have an app. So the kids work when they're not on campus, are working off the app in terms of their workouts. So they're constantly getting the structure and the detail of what they need to do physically. And then we do a lot of things in the off season to help them grow professionally and leadership wise. We do a alumni networking event. We try to work with our career center. We try to work with our center for leadership. We do a lot of different things to just help overall growth. So a young man that's part of our program for 4 years will become a better person, a better man by the time he's done, as well as a better football player. As I tell recruits, you won't walk away from this place after 4 years and say, boy, I wish somebody would have taken an interest in me, because we're going to take an interest in every facet of their lives.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible part of it. That's an incredible part of the overall thing of going there, is that the fact that the athletes are you be able to have that 360 experience, obviously academically and athletically. In recruiting, are things like, I'm curious, because when we talk to different coaches, even high academic to Division III level to schools that are powerhouse programs, the different kind of like styles of programs, the transfer portal and it is something that affects them one way or the other, more or less. What is that something that is ever an issue for your guys? Or your guys mostly locked in for those 4 years once they decide to come there?
As of now, yes, but everything's changing.
Yeah.
It's amazing, even in the last 5 years, and definitely in the last 10 years, just how much everything has been sped up. The whole process starts earlier, goes faster. 10 years ago at the Division III level, I don't think anybody was going out spring recruiting. Now, if you're not making contact with the majority of the kids that you're going to recruit in the spring, and you're waiting until November, December for that first contact, it's too late. And then we, at a school like ours, we work primarily in early decision. So we have early decision 1 and early decision 2. So our class, for the most part, is going to be done end of January. And as soon as that hits, we're right on to the next class, doing virtual junior days and all that. Transfer portal, what I sell our recruits on is they need to be a Rochester guy to be here, meaning they better want this education, this degree. They better want a challenge, because they're going to get challenged in everything they do here, on the field, in the classroom, in the weight room, in the meeting room, socially, and they want to be a part of what we're building. The vast majority, if not 100% of the kids we have right away buy into that, and that's more a credit to the guys we have in the program, because they bought in and have really taken ownership of our culture. So we don't have a lot of guys jumping in the portal. You don't leave this kind of academic situation for that. But the way things are changing, you never know. It's a crazy world out there. Society, if you don't like something, you hit the reset button like it's PS5 and let's start over somewhere else rather than going through something difficult to become better. So, that's something we try to ingrain in our guys is embracing the difficult because you're going to be better for it. And that's what's going to make you successful rather than, just flipping the script and going sompla else and thinking it's going to be better. So,
yeah. No, I agree 100%. No. Listen. That's why, look, you feel the same way that a lot of guys feel. And I would think that too, transfer portal wise, it would be not just guys leaving you, but for guys to come in as a transfer would be extremely difficult because of the academic situation, at that institution.
We have some flexibility transfer wise.
See, that's good to know. Like that's, most people, I don't think would assume that, right? Because of the high academic.
I have a shot with, as long as a kid has a 3.0 from whatever college he's coming from, I got a shot. And we do get those phone calls or that interest from, the kids that are taking PWOs at the FCS level that want a shot to play. And especially with how roster numbers are changing at that level over the next couple of years.
105.
The last year or two, we've had some grad transfers that had the COVID extra year of eligibility. So
that's awesome. I was looking at
definitely benefits us in that way. We're just not one of those programs that's going to be shopping in the portal for half our class.
Well, that's one of the things I thought was I seen a few of those this year for the first time where some guys went to whatever university they went to and grad transferred to Division III high academic. I've seen a few of those actually now, and I thought that's pretty intuitive of that athlete, right? I was a good, even at guys that were at the higher levels. I'm a really good player. I'm probably not going to be a pro. Okay, let me see what kind of graduate degree I can get and play another year of football or two, right? And I think that I saw a few of those, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting. So it is. You're right. It is an ever changing thing. Like that's not something I would have realized could have been a thing, right? Because, and especially, I'm sure down the line, especially as all the big donors get on board with you in the next couple of years, Coach. You get a couple of nice big donors that are like, and you go to them and you say, hey, there's a couple of these kids in the portal that are looking to go to a high academic school to get a great grad degree and play some football. Can we get these guys in? But I think that's a really, really, kind of like a reverse way for some of the players to have thought about, because obviously so many players originally thought moving up, but now the transfer portal has kind of like I think players that are coming in now are starting to realize that the transfer portal is not necessarily going to be an upward movement thing. It could be a lateral thing. It could be a downward thing to get yourself either more playing opportunity or in some cases playing opportunity and academics. There's more ways to skin the cat than just this, what was originally kind of billed as like moving your way up type of thing. So you're starting to get some more inquiries in that aspect?
Absolutely. When Division I finally does get to the 105 number, I think you're going to see it even more and more, because kids are going to see the writing on the wall and get cut. And they're going to be, especially the higher academic kids, as some of the better academic FCS programs, they're going to want an opportunity. And, a school like ours might be appealing for that. I think high school kids are now very aware. This was the first spring where I was going into high schools, and one of the questions I would get on a regular basis from kids is how much are you doing in the portal? And I can flat out tell them that we don't shop in the portal hardly at all. I know there's Division II schools that are actually going into high school saying that they can develop a kid for a year and then he can move up. I don't know why you would want to be a feeder program for somebody else. I want guys that are going to be here for 4 years and grow as people and help us win. So it's ever changing, and just try to stay on top of things. But every situation's a little different. So you got to try to maximize the situation you have, because every school is different at every level.
No doubt about it. Do you get like the type of players that you guys have come in there? Do you get a lot of kids from like those New England prep schools? Or are you getting kids from a smorgasbord of different places? Like
wide variety.
Really wide variety. Okay.
I mean, we have 25 different states represented on our roster. We got kids. We have over 10 from the state of Florida. We got kids from Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, California, the Midwest states, as well as up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and the Northeast is well represented, obviously being a Northeast school. But public school kids, private school kids, prep school kids, you name it. If they have our academics, we have probably something they're interested in academically. That's the difference between here and some of the other places I've been at. MIT, everybody is in the same lane. Swarthmore, everybody's in the same lane. Especially with liberal arts schools, there's a limited amount of majors, especially if you want to go on and make some money. Here, our business school is one of the top 25 in the country. We have a great school of engineering. Our pre-med program, because we have a medical school, is awesome. I think I've sent at least one senior on to law school every single year I've been here. So there's a lot of different directions these kids can go. And so even if you get here and, you thought you wanted to major in one thing, they can pivot and not have to transfer somebody somewhere else to find something they are interested in that can still be really lucrative for them after graduation.
That makes sense. When you're casting your wide net, right? So around the country, I would imagine the Northeast, I would guess that, especially more high academic kids, they may have an awareness of Rochester, even if they don't know everything about it. When you get outside of the Northeast, not probably as aware until you come in and talk to them. Is it a lot more of you reaching out, or are kids reaching out to you? I mean, I know, nowadays, I know kids are, they're casting, everyone's casting wide nets. Coaches are casting wide nets, and kids know they got, at least if their parents and the kids are on top of it, they know they got to cast a wide net, right? Because opportunities are different than they used to be. How does that education work, like within the Northeast, and then what is it like nationwide? Because I would imagine it's a different process.
It's different now than it was 7 years ago when I first got here, because we've been in a lot of these areas now. So, with social media, as soon as a kid says, U of R offered me, there's 5 underclassmen from his high school that are following me on Twitter. And so now they know about us, or, 10 other kids from that area, let's say in Central Florida or Houston in Texas. So all of a sudden, they're seeing that, or their parents, because most of the parents are on Twitter too. So they're researching us. And so it's kind of a little bit of word of mouth. And then what we go in and give them kind of the whole overview. But we also have alums that are all over the place, and there's always some kind of connection. I'll go into a lot of schools, doesn't matter where it is in the country, and at least one kid will say, my mother went to University of Rochester, or somebody my father is partners with or works with went to the U of R type of deal. So it's one of those schools where it's a national school, so it does have that reputation. So there's a little less education on our part than maybe when we first got here, where the previous staff was really just focused regionally. So now I think we've got the word out with a lot of high school coaches, and it's a little easier where you're not telling them about us for the first time, but you still have those, and you just have to be good about the points you hit on and make sure they understand this type of education and what we're looking for and whether or not it might be a fit for them or not. The biggest step in the process, especially with schools like this, is getting them on campus.
Yep.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
Once the kid steps foot on our campus and sees everything we have from a facility standpoint, just what the campus looks like, the people here, then all of a sudden, it's a much easier sell.
I think that's
Coach,
a
now
big deal. Yep, no doubt about it. Go ahead, Derek.
Coach, Dave, I just wanted to, how does that process work, right? Like from the initial, is it obviously, questionnaire, right? That's right. Get there, get to. Now, do you guys, is it mega camps, right? Like what happens before that get on campus? How does that process work for you guys? Because we've talked to a ton of Division III guys, and everybody's different in terms of, but I know for you, especially with that early decision window, that looks probably very different in terms of your season end and you're out, you're on the road, like you're gone and you're in those schools. That early December kind of window for you is probably what I'm assuming most hands-on type of situation. But I'd love for you if you could kind of talk about that process for you. What happens before you get those guys on campus?
Well, I mean, the ones that we start with in their junior year. So let's say February, we start with trying to switch gears to juniors because we just finished up one cycle. And I'll take you back to right after the season, wrapping up the class. But it really starts with the majority of the guys in February. We're trying to gather as many names and information as we can with coaches from all over the country on their kids, getting prospect lists, getting those kids to fill out questionnaires. Then we do a couple of virtual junior days as we get a little further into the spring, as well as a couple on-campus junior days. So we're trying to get kids on campus as early as possible. Then we go out in the spring and hit the schools that we hit. This year it was even quicker because we didn't end up spring ball. We didn't finish spring ball until May 2nd. So we were hitting the road right after that. And then all of a sudden camp season started in the middle of school visits. So, you're going to a camp on the weekend and still hitting high schools during the week. So it's been a little crazy here. But big push every time you make contact with a kid is getting him on campus with his family as quickly as possible. So, over the course of the summer, when we're not on the road at all these mega camps and Ivy League and Patriot League camps, which is where we see all the academic kids, where we have kids visiting. But then during the season, game day visits are huge. So it's another opportunity to get kids on campus for home games and their families.
Love that.
And then right after the season is over, hit the road again. And hopefully you're closing the deal with most of those kids in December, convincing them to go early decision. But also maybe coming across some kids that were holding out hope for that FCS or FBS offer that didn't come through, where we still have time to get them to apply, get them on campus and so on. Then we do our official visits, usually one in December and a couple in January, to get those kids to get on campus and have that whole experience, so we can convince them to commit right after that official visit and flip the early decision before the end of January. And then, then the process starts all over again. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Then it's
right now we
Groundhog's
have
Day, right? Then it's
3,000 or 4,000 kids in our database in this 2026 class.
That's
Yep.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's
the
incredible.
access to it now is just insanity. The access to it. I mean, back in the day, you're literally going off lists and what coaches are calling and telling you, and now everybody's got a list with names on it and whatnot. It's just it's incredible.
I mean, I'm in the office today and tomorrow. Then I hit the road 6 days straight of camps.
Wow.
Yeah.
All in New England.
How do you
Yeah, coach, get it.
how do you identify guys when you go to a camp? Because this is always the biggest question when kids go to a camp and a mega camp. They have such a hard time deciding which camps they go to and how they choose them. But when you're at a camp, what is your process of trying to figure out guys that you like at that camp? Because that I've been at them and I've talked to a lot of college coaches that I know, and there's some guys that are just like, they're looking for a needle in a haystack. There's some guys that are you just need that list of guys, and then they're going to kind of move around. What is kind of your process of trying to figure out guys that you like when you go to like a mega camp?
Well, we'll definitely identify the kids we've already had contact with prior, because you usually get the list before the camp. So the ones that we've had contact with, it gives us another opportunity to get some FaceTime with them and be able to evaluate them in person, even if we've already evaluated their film. You get to kind of eye them up. And then other kids that stand out, you're obviously trying to figure out whether they're an academic fit, if they stand out athletically. And a lot of it's just being seen. It's walking advertising. All of a sudden they see the U of R name and draw interest that way. And we're going to obviously try to get a lot of these kids that we're seeing at some of these mega camps or larger camps to come to our prospect camp later this month. But if they can't do that, then we just try to get them on campus so they can see everything we have to offer. So it's kind of multifaceted how you approach a camp. You don't just sit there and take down names or check guys off. It's kind of, all right, these are the kids that are at this camp that we're already recruiting. Which other kids do we want to add, and so on. So handing out a lot of business cards.
No doubt about it. It's very interesting, like, because I'm sure you're constantly refining your process. Like, Twitter, you get a bunch of things going, but obviously you probably also want to direct them to fill out like your questionnaire, just because it goes into your database, so it allows you to filter through based off their information. Explain to them the importance of that, like that kind of like. So getting on the board before you go to a camp, obviously that's it's important. Obviously you want to draw people to your own personal camp because obviously it gets them on campus. But that process of doing it's not a ton of steps they have to take, but the few steps to make sure they're adequately in your system, because I think kids, really smart kids too, like kids who could have super high, but they don't have that awareness of understanding. Like they think they DM you, and
oh god,
or they have somebody DM you, even if it's
they don't realize how many DMs I get per day.
Correct,
coach. I was literally just going to ask that. On average, right, a Division III head coach on Twitter, and I think you do a great job on there, by the way, because you're visible and you actually interact. I can see it. How many per day on average?
Well, first of all, I got to give a shout out to our recruiting coordinator, Jason Henshaw, who's our social media maven. He does a great job with our Twitter account. But shoot, 50 to 100.
Wow.
I mean, because I have mine open, so
yeah.
Even if I'm not following a kid, he can still DM me.
That's different.
So I don't miss anybody, because
absolutely, you never know.
I try to set aside an hour a day sometimes if I have the time to go through DMs and to see which kids followed me, to see if they're meet our criteria. It's really important for me being at a school like this academically. In their Twitter/X account, they better list their GPA.
Right.
So that kind of usually tells me whether I should follow them back or not. But it is crucial that they fill out our recruiting questionnaire. It doesn't take that much time.
Nope.
The link to ours is right in my Twitter bio. So if they actually read the whole thing, they know that they should just click on that and then upload their transcript and a link to their film so we can evaluate them both academically and athletically. But yeah, when I don't check those DMs for multiple days, then I got to set aside.
Oh boy, I can't imagine.
Try to figure out which ones I respond to and which ones I don't, which I try to respond to all of them because you never know.
Right. And coach, and literally these are the things that we try to educate, like, you know, either athletes that watch this or parents that watch this, that just something as minute, right, in as like, you know, listing your GPA in your profile allows you, it just takes it to a whole nother level of, hey, that now cut out so much time for this coach that he may now go follow you just because that little thing is in your bio, right? And it's something that, you know, some may see is as minute, but it's just so important in regards to just that recruiting aspect of, look, the volume is just beyond. So something so little can, you know, open the eyes and kind of have you follow them back, something just like that, where, you know, some of our athletes or parents, like that might not be on their radar.
Absolutely. And they should definitely be honest with what their cumulative GPA is, because we're going to find out.
Exactly.
We're going to find out. So I've had multiple kids say, Coach, I got a 3.8, and turns out it was just this past semester, and they have a cum of a 2.5. I'm like, big guy, I can't.
Yeah, buddy. Good luck, buddy.
But be upfront. But recruiting class year, GPA, those are big ones just to be able to see, because I'm getting bombarded with 29s and 30s, and we can only deal with one class at a time.
It just seems like it's getting younger and younger, coach, right? It's
well, I mean, with the higher levels, with their recruiting staffs and everything else, they can be that far ahead.
They have the ability, of course.
And they're looking at not only 27s but 28s and 29s. I'm like, that ain't us. So
there's no doubt about it. It's the process of,
well, maybe if your older brother's going there, right, coach, you can hit the brother aspect of it, right? If the younger brother.
But I usually try to wait until they're, you know, right now I will follow back 27s, maybe a really high academic 28. But if a kid is hitting me up that's just going into his freshman year, I think he can tap the brakes and wait until he's going into his junior year. So,
he doesn't even have a high school GPA yet. So, like, hey, buddy, like, we have some things that we need to take time with. I get it. Yeah, but Dave, I mean, look, you see it because, I mean, even like, you know, other that we see, you know, it just keeps getting younger and younger. I mean, there's baseball rankings for 7-year-olds now and all of these other things that it's wild. You know, I can only imagine in a couple years what happens. It's thank God that, you know, that GPA can kind of keep you in balance and keep it where it's at. But it is kind of interesting to see, you know, the push for younger guys to get, you know, to go to camps and to do all these things before, you know, anything. And it's like, man, you got to kind of just pump the brakes a little bit and understand it. And ultimately, like at the D3 level, like, you know, it's really, really difficult. And I had a D3 head coach say this to us. You know, he said, look, like nobody goes into high school saying like, hey, I want to go to Division III school as my number one college. Very rarely, right? But for you, I feel like that academic could almost sway it that way and say, hey, I could go to this school, high academic, and play football. Like, I think that's just such an appeal for certain students, as long as that target, what it is. And like I said, I'm sure you've developed really good relationships with those high schools that have that kind of track that way. And I'm sure that's been really beneficial for your program, not to mention being national. I think that's huge as well. So it's really cool. It's really interesting to kind of look at and those types of things. Plus the league you're in is extremely difficult, Coach. I mean, you're playing some hammers on a regular basis.
Yeah. The Liberty League is a tough conference, top to bottom. You're going to be challenged week in and week out. And now, starting this year, we started a scheduling agreement with the Empire 8. So we're going to be playing some crossover games, and that's a tough conference too. So there's no gimmies on the schedule any given week.
No, you're balling. You're balling every week. It's tough.
I think that the other thing the kids need to make sure they do is like have their name in their Twitter, their Instagram account.
Oh God,
I never understand why it's like,
I
wear high
socks.
I wear high socks, and
At GOAT 2022, like.
So, and I just went through this 2 years ago with my son. So I've seen it from the other side too. It's amazing. It's amazing, some of this stuff. So
some of the responses are
lack of advantage because he saw everything, so he kind of knew what to prepare for. But going to all these camps and mega camps and so on, as a coach and a father, that was a different experience too.
Yeah, and Coach, you could probably attest to it too. Like you literally just went through it 2 years ago. How much it's changed in those 2 years, right? I mean, it's night and day. I had to explain that, to some of our guys and whatnot. And it's, where are you getting your advice from? Are you getting advice from people that are literally in it and know it, understand to the best of their ability? Or are you getting it from somebody who went through this process 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Sometimes, and I'll go out on it. Head coaches now, high school head coaches need to understand this process, because a lot of them, I'm sure, Coach, you've been in and out of buildings, have absolutely no clue. And you know what? If you don't at least attest to someone on staff that has it and understands it, because it has just changed so much, even going into buildings, like I have guys committing, or we see guys that commit without even having a conversation with the head coach whatsoever. College guys don't even have to go to a head coach anymore. I'm sure etiquette-wise, certain guys still do, but if you just want to talk to this kid on X, you can now talk to parents and do everything that way and cut the head coach right out of the picture. I mean, just because it speeds up the process sometimes. Going into a school takes work. Like, you don't know which door to go. You gotta get a name tag. Can I see the guy this time? That's why I think these mega camps are really kind of like pushing to the forefront of those in-school visits are really tough. And I'm sure you can attest to that, Coach.
Well, it kind of mirrors society. Everybody wants instant gratification, and a mega camp, they know there's going to be a ton of coaches there, so they get exposure in one place. But it's a balance, because also there's a lot of numbers, so it's tougher to stand out. It's tougher to connect.
How many reps you're really going to get? Those types of things.
Yeah, and if whoever's running it, if you're not on their short list of kids they're interested in, maybe they're putting you in the wrong group where you're not getting guys on you. I saw that going through it with my son. He's happy where he is now, but it was tough watching him go through some of these camps and seeing what he saw from his perspective.
And you're a college coach, and you obviously know, right?
Yeah.
So that shows you how hard.
I would explain it to him. And that knucklehead wants to get into coaching now. I wish he.
Oh, God bless him, Coach. God bless him.
Oh, I don't know. I want him to go make some money.
Yeah.
So,
that's great.
That's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
You're trying to explain to him that it's going to be a long and windy road, right? A long and windy
You're
road.
like, buddy, get ready. Ain't nobody gonna like you.
Redshirted
Here
last
you go.
year, so he's got 4 more years of playing, so he doesn't have to be in a hurry.
Yeah,
Oh, thank God. Good,
That's awesome.
good. Holy hell.
Well, Coach, it's been phenomenal to have you on. I really appreciate it. And we're mindful of your time here because I know 11:15 you got to get to your next thing. But it's been awesome having you on. Fantastic job. I started following you when I was obviously still coaching, and you were at MIT, and the things you were doing there, and now what you're doing for the last 8 or so 9 years at Rochester is just really awesome to see you building it up again. I have a soft spot for guys who take over programs that are challenges that are at the bottom and build them up. To me, at least me personally, I think those are the jobs that show what kind of coach people are. Coach people is, I guess, because of the difficulty and the roads you have to go through, and sometimes uncharted waters in order to build a program up. You're sometimes you have all the knowledge that you have from all the years of being a coach and an assistant and all that stuff, and when you're dropped into a program that you have to build up basically from scratch. That's a whole different challenge because you're learning. You're a lot of trial and error, and the fact that you continue to do that and build is just to me awesome. So congratulations. Hope Rochester continues to keep taking each next step, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Appreciate you having me.
All right,
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you, man. Good luck. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye. That was awesome. Awesome. Really great.
Dude, I really love the one-on-one sit down with the players year round to talk about, you know what I'm saying? Because at a place like that where they're dealing with, you know what I mean? Like football, it's there, but man, once you get junior, senior year of college where they're taking this class or they got to go here and do this, like just to make sure come in and sit with the football coach and get settled. Like I feel like that's extremely important, and that's really, really cool. And I bet you if people start, look, I would love to do it with my high school guys to have that ability, you know what I mean? To just sit down with them and make sure that hey, everything's good. Let's have this conversation. What do you need help with? And somebody obviously that's not their position coach too, because you know how college works. Like, you're on one side of the ball. You don't really even know those other side of the ball. But I just think that's really cool. That's something that you came up that I think is it's definitely different. And like I said, he got rid of study hall too, because study hall it's jerk around time.
No doubt about it. It's amazing, and I thought it was just a great way of doing things, and really able.
It gets you. I mean, but look. He has the ability because he has 6 full-time assistants. Like, that's freaking amazing. You know what I mean? Like, that's big time. That's unbelievable. For a D3 program to have that.
Unbelievable. All right. Tomorrow we're back. Hoops, I think. So
Hoops, brother. Yes, sir. Joe Seals.
I'll get you over that image within the next 45 minutes. So you have that to roll. Cool. And
I'll send it to him.
And then
he's a West Coast guy, so he's coming on. He's West Coast.
Very cool. All right, man.
Sir.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Later.